Imagine a moment where a single decision changes everything. A respected Black U.S. Navy Admiral, known for his distinguished service and leadership, finds his entire career hanging in the balance after an encounter with a white police officer. One arrest, seemingly out of nowhere, sets off a chain of events that no one could have predicted. As the story unfolds, the Admiral's career, once on a steady rise, crumbles in the blink of an eye. What led to this shocking confrontation, and how did it ignite a firestorm that not only affected the Admiral, but also the wider issues of race, power, and justice in America? This isn't just about one man's fall from grace. It's about a system that can be as unforgiving as it is unpredictable. Stay tuned to discover how this extraordinary event unfolded and how it changed the lives of all involved. It all began on a quiet afternoon in a suburban neighborhood. Admiral James Green, a decorated officer in the U.S. Navy, had just finished a routine visit to his family when the unexpected occurred. As he was returning to his car, he was stopped by Officer Daniel Hayes, a white cop with no prior knowledge of the Admiral's identity. What started as a simple traffic stop quickly escalated. The details remain unclear, but eyewitnesses recall a confrontation that seemed to spiral out of control. In a matter of moments, Green was handcuffed and arrested, with no apparent reason other than what many speculated was a misunderstanding, possibly tied to racial profiling. For Green, the humiliation was immediate and intense. The police officer's actions were seen by many as an overreach, but the damage was already done. Word of the arrest spread quickly, and soon the media was circling, waiting for answers. What would this mean for his future? Would he ever recover from this public disgrace? The clock was ticking. As the days passed, the ripple effect of the arrest became impossible to ignore. Admiral Green's name was on everyone's lips, but for all the wrong reasons. His supporters rallied behind him, demanding an investigation into the officer's actions, while others, unsure of what to believe, questioned the narrative. The media coverage was relentless, every detail of the arrest dissected and analyzed. Some wondered if it was truly a case of racial profiling or simply a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. But for Green, the fallout was immediate and personal. Inside the Navy, whispers began to grow louder. His superiors were under pressure to make a statement, and the mounting scrutiny from both the public and the press weighed heavily on their decision-making. Some wondered if the Admiral's once promising career could survive the scandal. Others feared the optics. How would this affect the Navy's relationship with the public and with other branches of the military? Meanwhile, Officer Hayes found himself at the center of his own storm. What had started as a routine stop now placed him under a magnifying glass. His colleagues were split. Some defended his actions, citing the dangers officers face daily, while others questioned whether he had overstepped. Hayes was now caught between the pressure to justify his actions and the growing realization that this incident was no longer just a local event. It had become a national issue. Could he handle the weight of it all? Or would his own career fall apart alongside the Admiral's? As both men faced mounting pressure, each found themselves wrestling with their own personal doubts and the larger system at play. Would the truth ever come to light? Or would the conflict spiral even further, tearing both of their lives apart in ways they couldn't predict? The stakes were rising, and neither Green nor Hayes could see where the path would lead. As the weeks wore on, the tension surrounding the arrest intensified. Admiral Green had become a symbol of something larger than just a simple case of police misconduct. His supporters painted him as a victim of a broken system, while critics, though few, continued to question whether the Admiral's public persona was hiding a deeper truth. Was there something about the incident that the public hadn't yet uncovered? The media, always hungry for the next headline, latched onto every angle. New footage emerged from nearby security cameras, some showing a calmer exchange between Green and the officer, and others depicting more hostility from both sides. It was unclear who was at fault, but one thing became undeniable. The incident had ignited a firestorm that no one could control. In the Navy, the pressure was building to take action. Admiral Green had been placed on administrative leave while an internal investigation was launched. Some officers quietly expressed their belief that he was a casualty of something much bigger, racial tension that had been simmering for years in both the military and the broader society. But that wasn't enough to silence the calls for justice. Protesters gathered outside military bases, demanding accountability. Social media hashtags went viral, calling for systemic change and justice for Green. It seemed like the entire country was watching, waiting for the next move. Officer Hayes, meanwhile, was struggling to hold on. The department had launched its own investigation into his actions, and while he was still on duty, the pressure was mounting. Rumors began to circulate that he had a history of complaints lodged against him, some relating to his interactions with black civilians. The officer's past was now in the spotlight, and the more the public dug, the murkier his reputation became. He had never imagined a routine traffic stop would turn into a nightmare. Now every move he made was under scrutiny. Was he the one who had acted recklessly, or was this simply the outcome of a society divided? Green's legal team was working tirelessly, trying to gather evidence that could prove his innocence and perhaps clear his name. They knew the stakes were high. One misstep and his entire career, and his legacy, could be gone forever. But with the investigation growing more complex, new details were emerging. Would they uncover evidence that could change everything, or was this case destined to become just another tragic story lost in the shuffle of headlines? Both men were on a collision course. The nation was divided, and as the date for the hearing drew closer, the stakes could not have been higher. Was Green's career doomed to fall apart? The truth was finally coming to light, but the revelations only made things more complicated. As the investigation into Officer Hayes intensified, more officers came forward, confirming the claims about his past behavior. It became undeniable that Hayes had a history of abuse, and the department had failed to address it. The pressure on the police force grew to a breaking point. The case was now a flashpoint for the debate on police reform, racial justice, and the failures of the system that allowed such actions to go unchecked for so long. But the Navy had its own reckoning to face. Admiral Green, once facing an uncertain future, was now being seen as a hero who had stood up against a broken system. Public support for him surged, and many believed the Navy could use this moment to confront its own issues with racial inequality. In an unexpected move, the Navy decided to reinstate Green, not just as an admiral, but in a new role, a leadership position dedicated to improving diversity and inclusion within the military. His career was, in a sense, reborn. He was now more than just an officer. He had become a symbol of resilience and change. But it wasn't just about the Admiral's rise. Officer Hayes was officially fired, and his reputation was shattered. The department promised to overhaul its practices, but many questioned whether that would be enough to restore trust in the community. However, just when it seemed like the story was reaching its conclusion, an even darker twist emerged. As Green was preparing to take on his new leadership role, a private letter surfaced, one that had been sent to him years earlier, written by an anonymous source. The letter accused a high-ranking Navy official of orchestrating the cover-up of Hayes' past actions, suggesting that Green had been used as a pawn in a much larger game. The letter's contents sent shockwaves through the military, sparking new investigations into the possible involvement of powerful figures within the Navy who had been working behind the scenes to protect Hayes. Now, the story was no longer just about the fight between one man and one officer. It was about a systemic web of corruption that extended far beyond anything anyone had imagined. The final twist left everyone questioning whether this battle was ever truly over, and whether the real culprits were still out there, pulling the strings in the shadows.